Ready?
Yes.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Smart Moves. Smart Moves, yeah. And this is Smart News. I'm a little bit rusty. It has been a long time since the last episode. We'll talk about why that's been the case briefly, but as always, I am Sedzuko here with my co-host Slicky. And yeah, so it has been a long time since the last episode of Smart Moves in general because I bought a house, and for the past month or so, roughly, that's probably about right. I've just been like packing and doing paperwork and moving and trying to settle into the new house, and I'm on the downhill side of things now, so we're able to get back into the groove of things. I was telling Slicky that I literally only got to play my like 5 games to get my card back last month, and that was I think June 29th and 30th is when I did it. So it was down to the wire, and I was so out of touch with what was going on that like the decks that I made, like they weren't working, and I don't know. It was whatever. I got my card back, so it's all good. So I'm in the new house, which is exciting. This is my own room. Uh, all this back here. I mean, it's gonna be here in the videos. Oh well, it's a little. You can kind of see like right there. There's like a little opening. I took this cardboard box and I made a simulation of the underside of our couch that we have for my rabbit. So my rabbit is actually in here. She's over that way. So she's in the room with me, and I made like a fake couch for her so she can go up underneath and she can get on top. And yeah, so anyway, that's what's been going on with me is new house, and that's basically why we haven't had any episodes lately. So, um, Slicky, if you want to take a moment and kind of talk about maybe what you've done in the past month, unrelated to Hearthstone, and then in this episode, we're just going to kind of catch up on all the news that we've missed and get back into the groove of things.
Um. Well, I played a Super Smash tournament not that long ago.
Did you win?
No, it was single elimination,
Mm.
and in the second round, I went up against the guy that won the tournament last time, and I think I could have beaten him, but I didn't pick my best character because I was saving it for like the last round. I picked my second best character and I lost. So I think I could have won. I just kind of threw that one. I decided to get a tavern brawl set up. It's a lot, or not a tavern brawl, a fireside gathering.
Yeah.
But that's a lot harder than it seems because most businesses, you would think they'd just be like, oh yeah, more business. But most of them are like, well, how can we charge for it?
Right.
And, so I'm trying to figure out a place. Right now, I've got my friend has a record shop, but it's really small. There's like no seating, like 3 or 4 seats maybe. And if it's that small, that's fine. But if it ever grows, I'm gonna have to find another place to do it. So I've got that going on. Doing a lot of yard work, sort of. I guess you could almost say renovating my house.
Mm-hmm.
School's starting up in, I guess, about a month now. So gotta find that $1,000 to pay the rest of my tuition.
Fun.
And let's see, just trying to get back into coding some. Java just changed. Well, not Java didn't change, but Eclipse just changed, so I need to get a new version of Eclipse. Need to install that on my computer. That's always a pain because Oracle's website's really hard to navigate for me. So that's my non-Hearthstone related news, except for Fireside Gathering's kind of Hearthstone related.
Right. Oh, the other big thing for me is I forgot I was going to mention this. Trying to lose weight. So I've been changing my diet and working out on the regular. Just been doing pretty well. I think I've already lost some. Well, not lose weight, lose fat. And it's all vanity. I want to be able to wear nice clothes and look good.
Can I ask how much you weigh right now?
I'm not sure. Like I've been at a pretty constant like 220 for I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. Like, haven't really
Oh, that
gone
is
up,
big for
haven't
you.
really gone down. I'm about 5'9". I'm not completely without some muscles, but there's a good amount of fat there too. So that's what I'm trying to get rid of. And I gotta look at my purple Fitbit, and I got this. This, like, they're so damn expensive. This was like a old version, cheap one, only one in stock. I was like, I'll take it. So, uh,
And you were about like what 180 or so maybe when you're in the military.
I mean, the thinnest I've been at my full height was 135, which was like Skeletor.
Yeah, I would think so.
uh, and when I joined the military and early on, I was about 160, 165,
Mhm.
and I thought I would, stay in shape and all that stuff, but nope, just sat on my ass learning foreign languages, and then I got married, so all that has bloated me all the way up to about 220. But like I said, I've pretty much maintained that for about 2 or 3 years, so I don't think I'll really get any fatter. I would just like to get, slim back down because I've got a lot of cool clothes, and I can't make myself invest in cool clothes for fat me. So, yeah, so I'm working on that. And now that I've got a house, it's pretty dope because I've got my stuff set up in my garage. I got a dumbbell set, and that is my strength training routine. And then I've got my VR. I've got a HTC Vive. I've got that set up, and I've got some like high intensity interval training style games and stuff that I can do on that, like boxing drills and a lot of the rhythm action games. If you put them on the hard difficulties and just go, 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 and you have to intentionally make it harder on yourself. Like do everything you can to make it more intense. But yeah, you can burn some calories and really sweat on those. So
Yeah,
uh,
like when I go bike riding, I could just take it easy the whole time because it's not that hard of a, like course around here, but I basically try to make sure I'm pedaling constantly just
right.
because there's not really any point in doing it.
Yeah, if you're just gonna if
So,
you're just gonna sail around, you might as well put a basket on the front of your bike with some flowers
yeah.
in it or something. So,
So I just yeah. Um
so
yeah, I'm trying to get in better shape. I'm doing a different routine. For a long time I was doing this kind of Tim Ferriss minimalistic like only work out like 5 minutes, but basically you're just under tension the whole time, so it's supposed to be more effective. But I wasn't seeing a lot of results. I don't know why. Maybe it's not real. Maybe I was doing it wrong. So I've just switched to a regular program.
yeah,
And the hardest thing, I think, with any sort of getting in shape is just the eating because
yep,
you have habits.
yeah,
And especially if you're trying to build muscle, like people think, oh, I ate a chicken breast today. That's enough protein to build muscle. No, that's like 20 grams of protein. And if you're trying to build muscle, they recommend like 1 gram per kilogram of body weight,
mm,
which so you need like 70 to 80 at least at my weight. So I'm having to drink like two scoops of protein powder every day and a glass of milk in addition to what I'm already eating just to hit like right around my target.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I've actually been doing. So I do the VR high intensity stuff right now. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm actually using Nerd Fitness, which is it's a whole fitness thing. I've had access to it and I've done it off and on for the past several years, but it's essentially a workout thing where you can kind of pick. You get to pick like a class you want to be, and there are quests and goals, and you have a character, and you can level up, and it's pretty cool. You can pick like I think like assassin does like a lot of parkour style workouts. Warrior does like all strength training. There's the ranger or scout or something is a lot of running, and there's a good amount of stuff you can do there. What I'm doing right now, just because I've been out of shape, is just doing a basic dumbbell weight training session. And as far as the eating goes, I totally agree. Also, I think the truth is any diet works as long as it limits your calories somehow.
yeah,
You can get
I
into
saw
the
some.
the micros and like your specific mineral and vitamin stuff. But I mean, ultimately, it's just about keeping your calories down.
Yeah, I was checking out this subreddit. I really like using Reddit for a lot of fitness stuff too because there's just so many different people saying no, that's wrong, no, that's wrong. So you eventually get something that's pretty close to accurate just by process of elimination. And there's one thing that they have posted to the fitness Reddit, which is like the best article on weight loss on the internet, and it goes into that, and it's like, yeah, there are all these different diets, but they all work the same way, even though it's like, oh, it's focused on keeping your carbs down and your protein up. Yeah, but in the end, it's also you're going to end up cutting calories because you're changing the way you eat.
Yeah. So I mean, for my part, one of the things that I've started to do, because I was reading some articles about, and this is like way off the topic of Hearthstone, but it's fine. I'll put a tag in the description for where we actually talk about Hearthstone. But one of the things
Well,
that
we don't have any viewers right now except for me, so
oh,
no
yeah.
worries.
All right. So yeah, one of the things that I was looking at these people that lost weight just VR and the interviews. The guy was one of them was talking about, yeah, I played this game called soundboxing, which is they puts on a song, it sends notes at you, and you basically have to punch them, and it gives you more points for like stronger punches. And so basically what this person did is they started out doing like 20 minutes a day, then 30, then 40, and build up to like an hour, sometimes up to an hour and a half of just like punching and trying to improve their score and punch harder. And they were like, well, did you change your diet? And he said, no, I just ate the same stuff, but less. And that kind of really sort of sunk in for me because, you know, sometimes I take my lunch to work, sometimes I go get lunch. But basically, my fat ass would get like a 5 chicken tender, combo or something at the restaurant. And, from hearing this person just say just that simple thing, I've started getting like the 3-piece tender or whatever, which is the lowest I can get. It's like, yeah, okay, if I'm gonna go and get this food anyway, just eat less of it. And obviously, I want to try to not eat that stuff as frequently, but it just kind of, especially for those foods that aren't as healthy, right? I'm not trying to eat less broccoli, right? Like, I'll eat as much broccoli as I want. But for these other things, just, don't beat myself up about eating them, but like make the conscious decision to try to eat less, to cut those calories, to shrink my portion size.
Portion control, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, and I've heard the phrase "don't eat until you're full, eat until you're not hungry."
Right.
And that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Well, that was a weight loss tangent. So I guess we'll start talking about Hearthstone, since that's the point of this show now. So yeah, we're just gonna go through. I've got Hearthstone pulled up. Nothing too crazy or anything here. We're just gonna use this as kind of the bullet points to talk about the news that has happened since our last show, which was the 18th of May. So we got a few things to look at here. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and boop, get rid of my bookmarks bar. You guys don't need to see that I've got a folder called Bun with an exclamation mark. It's rabbit tips. All right, so the first piece of news that came up after our last show was we got some insights into the arena, and I think I had kind of touched on this before because I listen to the Lightforge podcast every week. It's kind of my on the way to work, on the way home thing that I listen to, at least until I'm done with the episode for the week. Then I change it up. But we had talked about a little bit about the fact, I think, that Blizzard made a change to Arena a while back where they started putting cards in buckets, and I think initially there were about 7 buckets. And basically the way it worked is your top bucket had your best cards in it, and then your bottom bucket had like the worst cards in it. And the important thing to note about this is the different buckets were offered at different rates for different classes. But that bottom bucket was almost never offered. It's like all the below average cards that Blizzard just thinks are like, you never want to see these, and they pretty much make it so you almost never see them. In this update, they were telling us about that, telling us about the different weights and micro adjusting and things like that. Uh, and I think important thing to note here, and I'll probably run. I don't know how much Slicky knows about this, but one of the important things to note is they don't balance neutral cards on a per class basis. So what that means is if Bone Mare is an awesome card and should be placed in the top bucket, it's in the top bucket for all the classes, even if some classes can utilize it way better than other classes. The class cards are obviously done by class, but the neutral cards aren't. So, this news article, they basically told us that, hey, what was happening with the bucket system is decks were becoming very, very similar. Because you'd see the same offerings over and over again, and if you were paying attention to Arena, then you could basically, you could see the types of decks that you could make that would work based on where things were placed in the bucket. An easy example is like pick a synergy from a class. Anything.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Okay. Dragon.
Okay,
Dragon
so
synergy for priest.
Dragon synergy for priest. Like, let's assume that we didn't just have the rotation. So if all of your dragons were in the same bucket for priest, you couldn't make a good dragon deck because you won't. That they're all in one bucket, so they're all going to compete against each other. On top of, you're going to get other buckets throughout your draft. And this is kind of what was happening, is that because there were only like these 7 buckets, there were basically, you could see, okay, there's this one or two decks that I can make. And that's because there's a synergy card in bucket 3, there's one in bucket 4, there's one in bucket 6, there's one in bucket 7. So I have the opportunity to choose all those without them competing against each other. So that was causing Arena decks to be very similar, and kind of, instead of spicing up the variety of your draft, it actually kind of made it a lot more boring. So one of the things they did to try to combat that is they came in and they said, we're going to add these new buckets that overlap halfway between existing buckets. So now there's there's bucket 7 and bucket 6. We're going to add a 6.5. And it's going to have the top half of bucket 6, the best cards in bucket 6, and the worst cards in bucket 7. Is kind of how that's going to work. You can reverse the numbers if you want. Bucket 1 is the best card, or bucket 7 is the best cards, whatever you want to do. I did it my way. So let's say bucket 1 is the best cards. And then bucket 2 is the next tier down. Well, they added a bucket between those two. And then legendaries are in their own buckets, separate from the regular buckets that have all the other cards in them. So what this did was essentially it doubled the number of buckets just about that were available, which meant that there's a lot more variety. Also, because you're getting the worst cards from the better bucket and the best cards from the worst bucket into a single bucket, you get like more buckets with more variety, and you can kind of, it may be that Frostbolt is in the bottom half of the first bucket, and I don't know, I'm just making shit up. Ice Lance is in the top half of the next bucket down. Well, now they could be in the same bucket, or you could be able to get them in 2 different buckets. So, short version is, I know that's a big long ramble to catch up on all that kind of stuff, but they tried to spice up the arena by adding extra buckets. There's still some problems with that. There's still a lot of issues, but I think everybody appreciates the fact that they did this, and it also had a big impact on the Taverns of Time, which we'll get to later. So I don't know. Any questions? Any comments on that particular piece of news?
Well, they have the micro adjustments too,
Hmm.
and I don't remember exactly how those work. Like if they have a higher win rate, they get seen, I guess, more or less commonly, and different classes are kind of changed all the time, right?
So the micro adjust is not constantly ongoing.
I thought it
Basically, what Blizzard does is they collect data. If a class is overperforming, then when they push the button to go micro adjust, then that class's cards, in this case, what kind of happens now is those cards either get pushed into higher buckets, so they're seen less, or their offering rates just go down a little bit.
right.
If a class is underperforming, then it's the opposite.
And I play a lot with Warrior,
Hmm.
and I think it has kind of a low win rate for Arena, but if you know some of the, like how good weapons are in Arena, it's a lot easier to nail drafting for Warrior because you pick your rush minions, you pick your spell stones, you pick your weapons. Um, and normally you do pretty well with Warrior, and I like that kind of small adjustment thing. But personally, I don't think I've seen as many Spike Ridge Steeds lately, so that's good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to show this is a little bit, it might be outdated, it might be up to date. I'm not going to take the time to figure it out right now. But this is an example of, the arena bins. Like if we look at Warrior, which you were talking about here, you can see the top bucket. So Bone Mare, Primordial Drake, and Firefly are the neutral cards, and they're going to be the same across all the different classes. But then if you start getting into Warrior, you can see these are the cards that are offered in that top bucket for Warrior. And I think this one, yeah, okay. So this is before they did the half buckets. So essentially, if you were playing Warrior, your top bucket had your Fooled Bane, Blood Razor, Frothing Berserker, all these really powerful cards. And the next bucket down had your Fiery War Axe, your Cruel Taskmaster, your Mithril Spellstone, that kind of stuff. So you basically would have to look at these and see like, okay, what can I build from these buckets? And what this update did is it said, okay, what we're going to do is between each of these buckets, we're going to add another bucket. And if, let's say Fool's Bane and Blood Razor were like the best of the top bucket, they would only show up in the top bucket. But if, Ravaging Ghoul was on the lower end of that first bucket, it would be offered in that middle bucket. And by the same token, if War Axe was one of the better cards in this bucket, it would go up and be offered in that middle bucket as well. And that,
It's really hard though to say if this has had a big impact because of Taverns of Time just kind of threw a monkey wrench into everything and made Mage the most powerful class.
right, there were
So
only a couple of days where people were able to play with this and try it out before we got Taverns of Time.
yeah,
So, yeah, there's still a lot of testing to be done, but that's what happened with this particular news update and the arena. So I don't know, it was a long tangent. We'll go ahead. We'll jump into the next piece of news, which is going to be Taverns of Time. So we got a bunch of stuff here. Basically, this is just an introduction to the stuff we're going to be talking about next. Taverns of Time event, new bundles, free golden card pack, which we will get there shortly. So we had mentioned the card nerfs that were coming in our last video with Test Greymane, Shutterwalk, stuff like that. The short version of this is Blizzard went back on a nerf for... Is this the first time they've really done it?
oh, they did Molten Giant.
Right, but they did that. Didn't they do that around like Hall of Fame time?
Mm, I don't remember.
Yeah. So basically, all they did is they reverted Tessmane's battle cry back to continue if she's destroyed, and Shutterwalk got its battle cry limit increased from 30 to 20. So,
They also did. I wasn't actually around when they did this, but they did Unleash the Hounds, which wasn't even really like they nerfed it, kind of, in that they completely changed the way it worked, and then people didn't like that, so they completely changed the way it worked again, and now it's just like a completely different card that's still of like a comparable power level to what it was initially, even though it works completely differently.
okay.
So
I know
there's that.
I played with it through all those versions, but I just like it is what it is to me now. So I don't
Well, it used
remember.
to be like give all your minions +1 and charge or something for one turn, kind of like Savage Roar, I
Hmm.
think. And
Weird.
now it's the dogs.
Okay.
So
All right, so we can move on to that because now here it is, Taverns of Time. So had we been doing post, I'm sure we would have done like our opinions on these cards, but this event has come and gone, and so we're not going to do that. Um, I did not get the opportunity to play Taverns of Time at all, so I'll let Slicky take it away here and kind of go over briefly what Taverns of Time was and what your experience with it was. I'll just say I thought it was a really cool idea, and had I had more time, I would have enjoyed getting a chance to participate. So, that said, take it away.
okay, well, Taverns of Time was mainly it was mainly an arena event in that they completely changed the way arena works by just adding a bunch of neutral cards and class specific cards to each different class.
So it was 2 class cards per class, and then the rest were neutral cards for a total of 28 arena exclusive cards that were added, which is a ridiculous amount compared to anything they've done in the past.
Yeah, and all of these cards were super overpowered.
Yeah.
Well, okay, not super, but most of them. The weakest card I can think of was a 4-mana 4/5 dragon that put all of your cards that you have in your hand back into your deck, and then you draw that number back after your deck is shuffled, essentially. But that's still a tempo 4/5.
Yeah.
So if that's the weakest card, then everybody was playing this card Chrono Giant, which gets -1 on it for each card you draw, and there are a ton of new cards that make you draw cards, so people would draft as many Chrono Giants as they could. And it was fun, but it's one of those that it kind of went back to the whole. For me, it went back to the whole thing where it's like, well, if you're a paladin, it's how many Spike Ridge Steeds can you draft? And I was seeing a lot of that same kind of like, well, how many Chrono Giants can you get? How many, of this specific card or that specific card can you throw into your deck? And
So I'll bring up an interesting point here. Lightforge mentioned this. The Taverns of Time lasted about 3 weeks. During the first week, the Chrono Giant supposedly was not really an issue. After the first week, Blizzard did some updates and some things, and one of the things that they did that they didn't publicly announce that they did is they did micro adjusts. When they did micro adjust, the giant was in the bottom bucket, meaning it was like not getting offered at all because it's a neutral card. It was listed as an epic, I think, for its rarity. Most of these cards, I don't think they had rarity gems, but they had background rarity tags. So it was a neutral creature epic in the bottom bucket. So it was your chances of seeing it were super 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 low. When they did the micro adjust, the giant ended up getting bumped up from the bottom bucket to the next one up, which doesn't sound like a lot, but what you have to realize is that bottom bucket has a significant penalty to offering rates. So the giant, it's neutral. That nerfs its offering rate. It's a minion. That nerfs its offering rate. This is all in comparison to, like a class spell or something. It's an epic, which nerfs its appearance rate. And then it's in the bottom bucket, which gives it a huge hit. So Micro just bumped it up. And that is basically when they started saying it's the what is it, the time, what was the name of it? I just know.
Saying what? Chrono Giant?
Yeah, Chrono. It's the Chrono Giant meta that basically happened week 2 and carried into week 3 of the meta.
Which, honestly, I didn't pick the card a lot because it didn't make any sense to me. Because typically in Arena, you're playing for tempo, you're playing for board control, and then you win, like, as you do with a tempo deck on ladder, around turn 8 is kind of when you're trying to finish up. But because of this Chrono Giant, I think it initially costed like 15 or
15,
something. It was pretty expensive. So you really could only get a lot of value out of the card if you went long game. So people's decks started shifting to a more control focus so they could get a ton of value out of these Chrono Giants late game. And I never shifted the way I was playing my decks because I have that's just what I've been doing. I've always played Arena pretty much the same way. And I was losing a lot because I wasn't adapting to this Chrono Giant meta like I should have.
Yeah, and there were two things. One, that dragon you mentioned as being the weak the weak card. Suddenly, if you have giants, it's really good. And also, if you're warlock, it's the giants are even better. So yeah, that caused a little bit of issue there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, it looked fun. I'm really happy that they did something like this. I have to agree. I'm not as upset about it as Adwalked and Merps on Lightforge were. But I do think it was kind of. I get why they replaced the regular arena with this, because if they didn't, it splits the player base even more. But I mean, it just kind of shows you where Blizzard stands on arena, which is that we can just replace it for 3 weeks with something else because we don't take it that seriously.
But also there is, when you think about the way arena is right now, once the new cards wear off, you have such a limited number of cards you're playing with in this current pool. They had to add some because there's just so little to do right now between different arena decks.
That's true. Yeah,
so I think
with the rotation,
kind of do it here.
Yeah, with the rotation, I definitely get to see that. Okay.
So, and then additionally, there was the Gold and Dust double rewards, and you got at least a 60 gold quest every day, but the 100 ones, it seems like everything had the same offering rate. So it was basically just a coin flip as to whether or not you get 60 or 80 or 100 gold. And that was really cool. And I really feel bad that you didn't get to play a lot because there was so much. Like, I crafted 2 or 3 legendaries, and I think I've still got about the same amount of gold as you, and I played a lot of arena.
Well, truth be told, I've got a lot of dust. I did get to do a couple of quests and get some dust out of those. And honestly, there isn't really I don't think I'm crafting anything else between now and the next expansion. So I'm okay. I do. I mean, come on, it's free. These quests were honestly awesome. I don't know what they're gonna do. This just seems like such a better reward system than what they have normally. Maybe not to this degree. Maybe not play 35 spells, get 100 gold, get 100 dust. But, even if it was 40 gold, 40 dust, that combo of being able to build towards a pack and build your dust to craft something, I think is really good and is maybe something that they should look into. Because I mean, it will help new players to be able to target things that they need to craft. And at myself as somebody who spends money on the game and generally has enough dust to craft anything I want, I still like getting dust. Um,
Yeah, and I don't. The, the quests are the way people phrase it is they're essentially just login rewards because you can finish almost all of these with any deck just playing 1 to 2 games.
mhm.
And people are like, that's what it should be like. That's a lot of people said that's what it should be like, and a lot of people are like, yeah, and we should also get gold and dust. But it's just they're not just going to give away everything.
No, and
So
that's why I said maybe if you reduce the value, or I think it's good to have quests that don't require you to play a particular class. I
yeah, I think
see the
that's like a weapon
value.
quest,
Yeah,
murloc quest. I don't want to have to build a deck. I want to play a deck that I might not use that much, but not build one for it.
yeah, and I see the value in kind of getting people to try different things. But I've been playing. I mean, obviously not the past month, but I was playing the Magic the Gathering Arena. And they have quests like that. It's like play this many red spells, and I'm like, really? Like, what if I don't like playing red? What if I just want to, especially in that game, because I basically am operating with a free to play account. It's like, okay, like where the hell am I getting these spells from? I only have these particular ones. I have to build a deck around it. I might not even like this play style. Like, why can't it just be play this many spells, or
Right.
or play this many creatures? At least then I've got the flexibility to do it, a, in a class that I like, or a color that I like, b, with a deck that I enjoy, like, or c, just like I may not be able to do either of those, but at least I can use the library I have to build a deck that doesn't totally suck. So
Hmm.
but the last thing I wanted to mention about Taverns of Time is we know that Blizzard tends to use Tavern Brawls and these arena events to kind of test out mechanics, features, ideas without having to commit to them. So we did see several mechanics. We saw these quests. That's one thing that maybe they'll tweak daily quests in the future. The other is all this deck, like a lot more deck manipulation. Um, Shuffle these cards into your deck, draw this many cards, or put this card on top of your deck, or when you draw this, do this. Like a lot of these mechanics. What do you think? How do you feel about the idea of more deck manipulation coming to Hearthstone?
Um, like, give me some more examples.
Well, if I'm trying to think, stuff from, let's say, Magic the Gathering. Well, first of all, you've got cards like tracking, right? Draw the
Hmm.
top three, pick one, discard the others. You've got, you know, play this card. What do we have? The torch. Play this card, shuffle something into your deck. Like those kind of cards don't really allow you to. They manipulate your deck, but they don't really let you manipulate your deck. So I think in the deck manipulation I'm talking about, it would be like take this card, put it on top of your deck, put it on bottom of your deck, or some of the things they do in Magic. You could draw the top 5 cards, put them back in any order you want.
Mm.
Things like that, where you have more control. It's not just shuffle this in or draw this and then it's gone. But hey, take a look at this, put it back the way you want it, or search through your deck until you find a creature or a spell or a dragon or something, and then shuffle your deck and put it back.
Well, I think that this is one of those things where it's like I was just thinking about this yesterday with because I've been watching a lot of Omni Slash stuff lately. Firebat complains a lot about how broad the meta is right now because it's really hard to predict what your opponent is going to be playing. So it's harder to mulligan, it's harder to predict the cards. There are a lot of just off meta decks that people are playing. It's hard to memorize all the different stuff. And it's harder for both new players and old players to do well because they don't know what to expect. And I think that Hearthstone has always been this game that's kind of um, it reminds me of the board game Othello. It had this little tagline that says "minutes to learn, a lifetime to master." And Hearthstone has that same kind of thing going for it. And I think if you were to add that kind of complexity to where people could actually manipulate their deck, those people that could do that would be at a huge advantage to the people that aren't good at that. I don't know. Maybe it's something that's easy to pick up. Maybe it's not that hard of a skill to master, but it seems like an extra level of complexity that maybe Blizzard doesn't want to add because they're worried that people won't be able to handle it.
Hmm.
So, like right now, I'm running a warrior deck that has 2 Forge of Souls and 2 Town Criers in it, and I just put Countess Ashmore in it. So, I guess in a sense, that's a lot of deck manipulation.
Yeah.
But I am able to like outpace my opponent on this massive level because I'm getting exactly what I need when I need it by having all these different ways to draw for it. So I think it's one of those things where once that becomes a real deal, it's going to kind of just take over. But I think Warrior is probably the best class for that right now because they have both Rush and the weapon draw from their deck. I don't think any other class has that much specific draw. And I know I heard Kibler say something along the lines of Recruit has completely changed the metagame because it's gotten to the point where it's what's the biggest thing you can get out at this really early turn using the recruit mechanic. And I'm just wondering if with deck manipulation that same sort of thing would end up happening.
Probably. I know some of the other, since we're on the topic, some of the features from other card games that I would like to see. I mean, I think aura effects are something that I'd like to see incorporated into Hearthstone, where you know, a good example I think is Healing Totem in Shaman. It's a minion, but if you were to take that and turn it into like an artifact or something, or something like the darkness before it awakens, you can't interact with it type thing, and it's just there. So every turn, your minions are getting healed for 1. The difference would be that because it was a different type, like an artifact, if that's what we'll call it here, you could design cards to like destroy artifacts or steal artifacts or that kind of stuff. So you can kind of steal those passive effects from your opponent or destroy them, or you actually can interact with them, but they're not minions. They're like more like I think they were kind of trying to do that with the Gunspire, making it more like a building because it doesn't attack like a normal minion does. It just does its thing randomly or like whenever it takes damage. But they made it a minion so you can kill it off, and there's some interactivity there. But something like that, like buildings or artifacts where you don't actually interact with them like you do a minion, but there are still things that can affect them and influence them, and they're not totally just non-interactive until a certain point in the game, like the darkness is, or like the rogue plant, or the
Well,
warlock quest reward and that kind of stuff.
my first thought is, what if you made the healing totem into a weapon, and like the way priest, their legendary weapon, became this play 3 spells thing. What if you changed it to at the end of your turn or at the beginning of your turn, heal all of your creatures or minions for 2 health? Would that be a big deal? It probably would, because that's kind of doing what priest already has with their hero power, but on a much bigger scale. And if it was like at the beginning of your turn, you could also do like happy ghouls or injured blade master.
Yeah.
So maybe they could do an artifact type thing with weapons.
That is
instead.
kind of what some of the legendary weapons do to an extent. And for me, I think I like the aura aspect where like whatever you're, because if you think about the warlock weapon kind of works that way where it just summons a demon from your hand, like it does a thing. It's not really a weapon. It's a
Yeah.
weapon and you can interact with it with weapon cards, But if it were a thing on the board that took up one of your minion slots, or they made a new slot for it to be there, and then it actually affected your board, not just did some random effect. And
Like a
there's a lot.
Mal'Ganis type effect. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples of that in Magic. I think there's a lot of cool things they could pull from other card games, not just Magic. But I don't know. We'll see. As far as we know, Ben Brode left, and the rest of the expansions this year are still designed under his influence with his design philosophies and everything. But I think we've already been able to see how the current design team is sort of shaking things up, through stuff like Taverns of Time or the arena bucketing system, or just talking to the community and explaining some of what's going on instead of just like meh.
Yeah.
uh,
I think they are. I think they're much. I feel like Broad had a very, um, like, what's the phrase? Pet, like kid gloves kind of way of dealing with things, where he didn't want to step on anybody's toes
yeah.
and would try to explain things a lot. But these guys just straight up nerfed Tess, and then like they weren't afraid to do that. They didn't bring any news. They didn't ask for any opinions. They just did it. And then when it didn't work, they just undid it. And I feel like Broad probably wouldn't have let that happen in the first place.
Right.
Or if he did do it, he probably would have stuck with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think that's the I feel like there's a little more daring, I guess,
Yeah.
with the people that are operating right now, and I think we'll start to see that throughout the rest of the year, because I kind of expect to get some sort of event every expansion, and we'll see what they do with that, and you know. I mean, the real true, I think, insight will come at the first expansion of next year. But anyway, let's jump in and talk about. We had a free pack day. You could log in and get a free golden pack. I can't remember. Have they done that before?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they had.
I didn't get anything good.
Oh, I wanted to briefly talk about this Rise of the Zombies brawl, just because I did it, and like my opponent just kept getting lifesteal rush, and I never got it, and it was just pissing me off. I was like, screw this brawl, like not once did I get, or maybe one time I got lifesteal rush combo. This was the brawl where you both played with the Rexar Death Knight hero power, and yeah, that was annoying. I probably killed my opponent like 4 times in terms of health damage done before the match was over. Still won, but man, ugh.
Yeah, I think I played this 3 times and I lost twice, and I finally won on the third time. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore
Yeah.
because it was just really irritating to me. Um, and that oftentimes that's how Rexar's hero power goes. I remember this one dude who was like BMing me the whole game, and he managed to get that stupid legendary from way back when that does 1 damage to everything with poison, and he got it twice, both times when he needed it to clear the entire board after I was stomping him. And I was like,
Uh,
that's you can't just have a hero power that gives you a coin flip to win the game. Essentially, that's just Yogg-Saron. That's nonsense.
yeah. Oh man, but that does bring in a little point about the lifesteal rush combo with the hunter hero powers, like stupid.
Yeah.
That stupid little lizard from Witchwood. That's what's doing it. So. All right. So Blizzard is doing a new series of articles called Tavern Talks, where they try to provide some insight and communicate with us, the players. And they mentioned a few things in their very first one. So they don't have any plans for more rewards for class wins. So basically, it's what, 500 wins.
Yeah.
Once you get 500 wins with a class in ranked, you get your golden portrait and all that stuff, and they don't plan to do rewards beyond that, simply because the majority of their player base doesn't get to the point where they have all golden class heroes.
I just want something. I just want a card back. That's all I want. I just want a card back.
You have the pride in your accomplishment.
I'm sure that less than 10% of their players does the heroic versions of the adventures, and they get a card back for that. So why can't you get one for getting all the things? That's not fair.
I won't disagree with you. I mean, that's a fine argument for me. So, um, let's see. They were talking about adding additional ranks to ladder for new players so they can fight other new players. Essentially, like right now, the ranks go up to 25, and they were kind of talking about, well, maybe we'll start people at rank 30, and 30 to 25 will just be like all new players, and then once you hit 25, you're in the normal ladder system. Something like that to kind of help people out.
Well, I think the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that people that'll play standard will switch over to wild or vice versa to get easy wins against lower ranked players. And I don't think you should be able to do it like that.
Well, and
I feel like there should be.
also, there's no way to regulate, and this is a problem that I think doesn't have a solution. But that is, people will take these decks that they play at, rank 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, legend, and they'll just roll into casual, and just stomp people with them. And there's no like real kind of
Deterrent.
there's no testing ground, right? Where you can go in with your whack ass deck that you're just trying to like figure out what the hell you can do with it. Like the best thing they have is like maybe you can go fight the innkeeper or something, and guarantee that you're not gonna fight, like odd paladin or even paladin or whatever the hell kind of crazy ass deck there is. There's no like playground for that. And I don't think there's a real solution to that, because if people can build decks, if you have the option to build your deck and take it somewhere, they can build that deck or net deck or whatever and take it in there as well.
Well, hypothetically, they could do an algorithm that's like, if 95% of the cards in your deck match a such and such tier meta deck, then you're going to be at this tier when you're playing. Hypothetically, they could do something like that. Basically, sort maybe cards into buckets again, and be like, you have all really high tier cards, bucket cards in your deck. You're going to that tier. I've played guys in Wild that have just a 30 card legendary deck, and it's not always cohesive, but
Right.
sometimes it is really cohesive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well. So the other thing they talked about is alternate card art and how they don't want to have it because it can confuse people. You should be able to immediately recognize a card based on its artwork. This is a point that I strongly agree with. I hate alternate art in other games for multiple reasons. I do agree that you should be able to instantly just like look at a card and go, yep, I know what that does. But also, I'm just like, that could have been a different card. Like put that artwork into more cards or adventures or something. Not, hey, here's Tyrion and here's alternate Tyrion. Like we have gold and non-gold, and that's good enough for me. I don't even like the gold cards because I think the borders look ugly. But I don't know. So
Yeah, I only keep the gold cards that have really cool like animation, because most of them just have little auras generating out of what they already were. But if like I like branching paths a lot because the guy's doing this on the card art. I've got Mad Hatter. It's got hats actually falling from the sky on that card. That one's pretty cool.
I like alternate art in the form of like Death Knights or something, where like you get a different art, but you're also doing something different with the gameplay. Or we've had
also the Rush cards, the new ones that they've added for the Witchwood. Those have alternate card art, and they do different things like what you're talking about.
Right, but it's not just here's Bloodfin Raptor and here's Blue Bloodfin Raptor, like so.
And that's already confusing because how many raptors are there in the game? Like 4? So you
Right.
have to have different ones. But something somebody brought up on the subreddit the other day was the fact that there are um, like some cards that are just wrong. Like Mal'Ganis is not actually Mal'Ganis, and Malagos is not actually Malagos. That card art is different than the actual WoW creatures that they come from.
Mm.
So, and maybe that just should change for canon reasons, but
Yeah,
they
I could
kind of
see that.
divorce themselves from
Yeah.
WoW anyway. So I don't know.
Be kind of weird if you had Sylvanas, but it was Tyrande instead on the
Yeah.
artwork. I could see that. And then the other thing they mentioned is they don't have any plans for reprinting old cards. For
So to all
previous
of your
sets.
questions, no,
Yeah.
no,
No,
you're
no,
not getting
no,
anything.
no, no, no.
Shut up.
This is not a tavern. It's not a tavern talk. It's a tavern. No, no, no. So we got a couple more things here. I figured this was something we could start doing on Smart News, which is just checking out the card back for the new season when it comes up, and kind of just giving it a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, just if you like it or not.
It's okay.
I like it. So
Yeah,
when
I'm
I
not
look at
too.
the card backs, I try to have a theme with my deck, and then I try to match a card back to it instead of just picking a card back that I think looks cool. If I'm playing a deck that doesn't really have a theme, then I'll pick that, or I'll make my default just a cool one because while I'm just testing decks out. But once I have a theme, like, hey, this is my rogue deck that's all about ninjas and stealth and sneaky stuff. Like, I want to put the ninja card back on it, which hot tip for figuring out what deck I'm playing. uh, but this looks like it'd be a good like paladin priest. It's light forged, which uh, was something introduced in the last World of Warcraft expansion, where essentially uh, various characters had embraced the light, and the light had changed them into these holy warriors,
So
essentially.
it's like Twilight stuff versus regular stuff, and Old Gods influence and all that stuff.
Yeah, these
Just
are people who have been forged in light, and they get like these light etched runes on them and stuff like that. And you can actually play as Light Forged Draenei. That was a new allied race in WoW. I'm not going to get too much into that, but yeah, that's what this is. So it's not specifically Paladin Priest. It's a bunch of stuff, but I think this would be cool for a Paladin deck for sure. So,
okay.
but you're on it.
Yeah, just it doesn't look. I don't know, super interesting. It's not funny. It doesn't look super cool to me. It looks kind of like a top.
Well, this
You know,
is this
a
is
spinning
gonna.
top.
I'm pretty sure these are always like pseudo animated. So I think all these little
If it spins
flecks, like
around, maybe that'd be cool.
no, I think these light flecks here are just gonna like be an aura kind of thing of like the light sparkling around.
No, I want to look at some card backs and let you bring that up. I'm going to go to Gamepedia and look at Hearthstone card backs and see which ones I like. I like the pie one. I like the rainbow. I really want the rainbow.
All right. We're so off to it's fine. We're getting back into the groove of the thing.
I got the Tavern Brawl one. That one's cool.
Let's see. Card backs of Hearthstone. Is this all of them? Like, okay, yeah. This is all of them here.
Oh, the Blue Portal, the one from One Night Karazhan. That's a cool one. I really tried to get that Dollar and Flame card back, but I was not able to. Here's this. Oh my goodness. I got a commercial or something that just showed up. It was wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool ones. Like I said, I try to pick a theme that matches my deck and
Oh
kinda run
man,
with
from
that.
way back too. The oldest ones are the coolest. Nox Ramus, Rainbow from Ranked Season 3, Ice Crown from Season 5.
I missed a
Man,
bunch of those just because I wasn't. I played Hearthstone since basically launch, but I kind of like wasn't as into it for the first year, so I missed a
Hmm.
bunch of card backs. So meh.
Yeah, it's sad. All the old ones are cool. I now got something that's trying to. I've got some sort of
So
virus that's trying to affect my computer. Where is this even coming from right now? It's trying to get me to download stuff.
all right, so the next big piece of news that actually is really recent, so we're not like super behind on addressing this, is there are changes coming to some of the cards. Basically, Blizzard put out a post and they said, hey, we've been talking with the community, and we think for consistency's sake, we should update some cards so that they more accurately reflect what you think of when you look at them. So, Molten Giant and Mountain Giant are now going to be elementals. We can just start there. I mean, what do you think about that?
I don't think that really matters a lot for Molten Giant, but there's a deck that Kibler's running right now that is it's a tempo Book of Specters mage, a tempo elemental Book of Specters mage that runs Mountain Giants because your hand is pretty much always full because you're just playing on curve and using Book of Specters whenever you get low. So once you switch over to Frostlich Jaina, your Mountain Giants are big 8/8 elementals, and that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, you're probably going to try to cheat them out early, so most of the time it's probably not going to matter, but if they happen to be late game cards, that could be a big deal. So,
Yeah,
luckily, I have not run into this deck, but that seems pretty threatening.
yeah, when you got a bunch of card draw, being able to draw a card and drop it for nothing so you can get some free space in your hand is good as well. So
Yeah.
Molten Giant is Hall of Famed anyway, so I mean that's only a thing in Wild, and I'm a little bit out of touch over the past month, so I don't really have anything to say about it at the moment. So
I think if they change, like right now, elementals don't really have, all they do is cause chain effects.
yeah,
So they do that, and then they activate with Frostlich Jaina for lifesteal. But unless they start changing, they make a new elemental card that affects this a lot. I don't think it matters. Like, I've actually seen some people play Cauldron Elemental, I think it's called, that gives all of your other elementals +2
yeah.
attack. But unless they start printing more cards like that that have more Murloc type effects, I don't think it really matters that much.
Okay. Witchwood Piper is now going to be a demon. So we've got more demon synergies, which pretty much only apply in Warlock.
Yeah, what other? Uh,
There
there's
are
so
other
many good
demons that are
synergies.
used, but they're not like super
Nobody plays
synergy
Demon
cards.
Fire. Nobody plays Demon Heart. Nobody plays Sense Demons. I don't think that really matters a lot. I think it's cool though. I think it's cool she's a demon because I always thought she was a happy little Piper, and now I'm thinking, oh, she's here to like pull me off into the woods and kill me. So that's kind of cool.
North Sea Kraken is now a beast.
Makes sense.
I don't think that matters.
No.
Maybe if Arena wasn't standard, it would matter, but yeah, this is a wild card. Jungle Moonkin is no longer a beast. Who cares? I mean,
Yeah.
and then so Witchwood Grizzly they wanted to keep as a beast, so they are going to be updating the artwork so that it looks more beast-like.
This one's weird.
Yes.
They won't change card art except for this one, even though nobody really cared.
But I think it was mentioned in the comments down here. If we go up, if we search for, what is it? Spectral. Is it Steed or Charger? No. Oh, it's Ghostly Charger. That's what it is. So this is where the point of confusion is. Like, that doesn't look like a beast. Or aren't they?
No.
Like, the whole point of this update was for consistency, and to kind of address these issues where like the art doesn't match up or thematically things don't match up. But here we have a ghostly horse that is a beast, and it definitely doesn't look. It looks like what the grizzly looked like. So, is Blizzard gonna change the artwork on this one?
It'd be pretty weird if it was a brown horse that looked like that. Just saying.
I
Like
mean,
that art does not look at all like a cloudy horse should be brown. That doesn't make any sense.
and I think there was another oh yeah, here you go, fen creepers as elementals. Like, people, like, I feel like Blizzard opened up a can of worms here.
Yeah.
Like, I get what they were trying to do, but at the same time,
And this is
uh,
another Broad thing, I think, where like Broad wouldn't have even touched it. He just would have kept ignoring those questions, and they wouldn't have had to start doing this. Well, you did this thing. Why aren't you doing this thing?
uh-huh.
I don't think Broad would have let it happen that way. The same way with Tess, he probably never would have let them nerf that because he'd be like, well, people are going to bring up the Yoxeron thing and how they should get dust back. And yeah, I think this is a very anti-Ben Broad move they're doing here.
I do like this artwork, though. I know a lot of people have said they don't like it, but I think it's cool. I like a glow bear.
It just looks like such a normal bear, though. It doesn't look.
Like, he's glowing, though.
Yeah.
Well, and he's called a Witchwood Grizzly, not like a ghost grizzly, or you know what I mean. Like, I'm fine with it. It's a little bit different than the, ghostly charger. Should probably be ghostly. Maybe that's why
Well,
they're not changing the art.
somebody brought up that they felt that every minion should have its own thing, which seems like a lot of work, but I always get confused when I see something that's like Worgen Infiltrator, Twisted Worgen, and I know that's like a race
Yeah.
in WoW versus a creature.
Oh, you
But
mean like it should have like a name or something?
well,
Like, instead of Twisted Organ, it would be Bob or something.
no, it's not like that. No, I just that everything should have a tag, but not everything has to have synergies.
Oh, got you. So, like, all the Worgans should be tagged with Worgan.
Yeah, or humanoid or something. So
Mm.
maybe you can play a human. Like, what about Silverhand recruits? Why do they get preferential treatment even though they aren't a type? They're like that's what it says. It says Silverhand recruit, but it doesn't say at the bottom Silverhand recruit. But the everything else works the same. Whereas with other things, Murlocs, you have to have the Murlocs have the little Murloc tag on the bottom, or else it doesn't work.
So you can't
So
have a card that's like, all your Worgans have +3 attack, because there's no Worgan tag, and that would just be
right,
weird.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So I feel like it might open up design space, but it would probably also stifle design space in another way by being like, well, now we can't, blah, 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 blah. But it just seems to me that for consistency, maybe they should just make everything into something. Just an idea. Just throwing it out there, Blizzard. I know you're watching the stream. You don't have to tell me.
Definitely. Okay, well, I mean, that's food for thought for sure. I don't know if I agree or disagree. I think I probably disagree, just because it's a hell of a lot of effort that I don't think most card games take anyway.
Well, one thing I would like to see at the very least is to have some sort of, like, I don't want to say tribal synergy, but something along the lines of, like, there are all these playable races in WoW, but you never, like, you never feel like you're a player. You're playing as a hero. You never get, like Questing Adventure is the only this is you card, you know? This is what a person in WoW is. And you don't ever see, like, I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like there should be some sort of kind of overlap there where it's like, hey, yeah, these players, these things are like you. And when you got the Death Knights, that kind of was a take on it in a sense where it's like, here's you picking a WoW character, kind of like a WoW class that you're playing as that's different that we've added recently. So here's this sort of, yeah, I guess I don't know what my point is, but I feel like there should be some sort of way you could kind of feel like this is the race and the because you can already pick shaman, warrior, blah blah blah. I can in
Okay, gotcha.
um, World of Warcraft, but like maybe you can pick like I want to be a such and such shaman because something like that.
Okay, I got you. I got you. That makes a little more sense when I think about it in the context of Magic, because you can build you can pick a deck that's color, but you can focus on like a deck that's about like flying creatures, or you can focus on a deck that's about like recruits and commanders, or it's like you get to pick these themes that are centered around essentially types of minions and things. And so
Yeah,
you're kind of saying like, well, you pick shaman, but you can be like the worgen shaman or the goblin shaman, or that kind of stuff.
yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
And
Yeah.
that kind of goes back to the whole thing that they're trying to do these different buckets with Arena, but it's every time I played Arena, it's always the same archetypes.
Yep.
Every priest always plays for value. Every paladin plays for wideboard synergy, and there's never any like I'm playing as I like Silverhand Recruit is a good example of what I wish I saw more of. Back in the day, people did used to do like demon decks and stuff with Warlock, but you don't really see that much anymore.
Mhm.
It's become like what's just the most powerful thing.
Right.
I'd like to see more kind of like class specific. This is our class, not just shamans are ice now. Go shaman, you're doing ice stuff now. Like maybe I want to do what World of Warcraft craft class has the most cool shaman stuff? I don't know, something like that.
Mm. Okay.
So yes,
Yeah.
a tangent there. I want to feel more, I guess, role play about the game sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think a lot of times I go for the theme of a deck, like with Rogue making the like ninjas, because I make a little story in my head of like, yeah, we're this. My deck is this group of like ninjas and assassins, and I play Dirty Rat because he lures the guy into the back alley, and then my Shadow Panda dude is like, you dead, and he gets
Yeah,
goes
something
back into
cool like that.
stealth. Like, yeah, that's essentially what I try to do when I'm building decks most of the time, is like have some kind of like, yeah, I don't really do the whole like tabletop role playing stuff too much. I've done it occasionally, but yeah, that just kind of made me realize like I'm doing that in Hearthstone, which is weird, but
But yeah,
interesting.
I
It's
mean,
something to pay attention to. Maybe that's a little point that I'll add in our deck showcases. I'll be like, this is the story behind this deck.
yeah, like a story, almost like a story mode sort of thing. I don't know. That doesn't that seem fun?
Yeah,
Where
yeah. Oh, maybe
because
that's something.
like
Yeah, I like it.
you were talking about the magic thing, and I was thinking like I didn't play that much magic, but I remember you could get a bunch of like rodents and stuff if you were playing like the dark class,
Yeah, or you could
the
go
black
vampires or like weird swamp creatures, and yeah. But
yeah,
Magic
and just have
also
more
has like a
20, 30
yeah,
years of
history.
cards.
So,
So, um, my pants, these jeans that I'm wearing right now. Watch this. I can just take the fabric and just rip it. These pants are so old. That's crazy. Just ripping off pieces of my pants.
all right, so we got one other piece of news here, sort of, and that is July 12th. Save the date. Uh,
12/7/18. That's a weird way to do the date.
yeah, it is.
It looks like December 7th. Are you sure that's 7/12?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The 12th is, what day is the 12th? Is that Tuesday?
Today's the 6th, so it's the day before today. So that would be Thursday.
Okay, Thursday. So this should be the announcement of the next expansion. Uh
Is that each?
I
That's a
don't
piece of
this
fruit,
is
right?
really weird to me. This is like I want to say it's the announcement for the announcement of the next expansion, but in the artwork we saw, it was definitely like Netherstorm, portally pink, like crazy
They always
stuff.
trick
Like,
you though. It's always not what it looks like. Nobody's ever gotten it right, I don't think, and been
yeah,
like, this is what
yeah,
it's going to be, because it's always some sort of what's the word? Misdirect, you know? It always looks like something, but then it's something else.
that's true. But I don't like. This makes me think. I don't know why. This makes me think like Robin Hood,
I mean, who
which
would have guessed which would, right? Because
there were
nobody even
some
knew about
people
this.
that were in the vicinity of that, you know. But maybe you're right because I think out of all three that they posted, the middle one was the most like dead on obvious. Like this should be Netherstorm, it should be Ethereals, it should be Outlands, blah blah blah. Whereas the
Okay,
other
well,
two is
based
kind of like
off of this, what do you think it is? You said
fruit,
Robin Hood?
fruit. It makes me. I don't know. Why? Obviously, this is like it. I think it's funny because it's a piece of fruit that has been bitten. That's an
It's
orc
whimsical.
hand. It's
Yes.
yeah, and the pit of a fruit is also often called the stone. And so we got a Hearthstone in the middle of the fruit. Uh,
What if it's just a whole thing centered around eating stuff? Wouldn't that be
that's
cool?
what people have said is like, oh, we're getting like a farmer's market expansion.
That'd be so hilarious. Funnel cakes.
But
Funnel
I mean,
cakes
it
here.
is that time where we should be getting expansion news. Like we're a little over a month away from when the next expansion should come out. Maybe 2 months if they push it to the end of uh, August. But the next expansion should be out in August, so we're getting close.
Okay. Well, my first two thoughts here. First thought is biblical, which I don't think they're going to go with, but I'm thinking like forbidden fruit, and I don't think they're just going to do that. So my second thought is this is going to be one of those kind of like, um, you know how the old gods was like, well, if the old gods were still around and they were doing a bunch of stuff, this is what things would look like. And then it would be like, if all the heroes were Death Knights, this is what they would look like. My first thought when I see this is, what if we were in like super duper fairy tale land?
Like the
Like,
Disney version of
yeah,
Hearthstone.
like
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland type thing. What would cards be like? And everything have kind of like this, like springtime, happy, I'm like a little tiny person in a huge world kind of feeling, or something like that. Just fairy tales.
Yeah, it's very Disney fairy tale. I think that's like when I say Robin Hood, I'm thinking Disney Robin Hood, right?
Yeah.
Not some other live action shit or whatever.
And I'm into
Uh
that. I'd be down for some fairy tale cool stuff.
yeah, it would be pretty cool. Uh let's see.
Look at these people doing numbers and stuff.
I know.
No, it's fairy tales. That's what it is.
Here we go. Considering the previous hint towards the next expansion theme was the ethereal gate, gonna guess that this is a hand belonging to Crow Threadstrong, a leatherworking supplies vendor in Shatrath who would spend his days yelling at an elderly fruit vendor, Granny Smith, hence the apple, threatening him and his non existent ogre army. Crow is brown, not green. Shatrath or Outland?
I feel like that's not really a theme, though, is it? It's kind of like a specific. Is it?
Well, Shatrath and Outland, that's an entire expansion for World
Oh,
of
it is?
Warcraft. Much like, Wrath of the Lich King was an entire expansion, and they did Knights of the Frozen Throne, which basically pulled in a bunch of things from the raids and stuff that were there. But I think this really doesn't sync up. That picture plus my perception of Outland like that. This person says maybe a summer festival, and I'm like, yeah, that I kind of get that vibe, but I mean, that kind of makes me think grand tournament, which they've already done. So I
And
don't know.
yeah, they do kind of normally sync things up with the seasons, so it makes sense to have something
Well, you say
summery.
that, but we got Witchwood.
Well,
Like,
that's true. Witchwood was kind of weird there, but they did. What was it? Frozen
and
Throne.
Frozen Throne was like that was in the middle of the summer.
Was it?
Yeah,
I thought
it
that was
was
like
the
winter.
August expansion.
Well, are you sure?
Yes,
Okay. Well, I trust you.
it was Ungoro in April, Knights of the Frozen Throne in August, and then we got Kobolds and Catacombs in December. So,
Oh, I think what I'm thinking is that Frozen Throne synced up with the newest season of Game of Thrones, which
oh,
was all super duper wintry. I
wintry.
think that's what I'm getting confused.
Hmm.
So,
Well, we'll
okay.
see. That's next week. It'll happen before our next show, so we'll be able to talk about it then.
Well, mark my words. I'm going with Fairy Tale. What's your final bid? Is it going to be Summer Festival? Going to be Farmers Market?
I'm thinking one. I'm okay with the fairy tale theory. I think like this is just a weird like, haha, gotcha. It actually is something that has to do with ethereals or Outland or whatever matching up with the expansion, or maybe this is some weird like one-off summer micro holiday thing that they're gonna do. Which is weird to me because we should be getting expansion news, but if it's one of those things like um, that because they mentioned wanting to do stuff like that, these little tiny, like free pack day, and maybe this is something like that that just has to do with summer. But I don't know. Those are my three guesses. I'm with you on the whole fairy tale thing. I think that'd be really cool. I'd fucking love that for an expansion. Or, hey, gotcha. It's a gotcha, and it pertains to the next expansion, which has nothing to do with this. This is like a piece of artwork, or maybe it's a micro holiday type thing. So
Yeah, that'd be a weird time to do it since we just finished a micro holiday.
yeah, it would be really weird. That's why I don't anticipate it's going to be that. Plus, like I said, with the timing, we need expansion news. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, that is going to do it for the show this week. Next week we'll be back. We're not entirely sure what we're going to be doing yet. Might depend on this particular picture and what happens with that. But we're definitely getting into expansion card review kind of season. So we'll be going into that probably at least 2 episodes from now. They should have started saying something. So yeah, it's good to be back, and we'll see
Yeah.
you guys next week.
Uh-huh. Oh, congratulations to Bunny Hopper, I think it was, won the summer championship. So for anybody that, you know, cares, but I think it's going to be the year of killing all day, the professional player, but we'll see. So,
All right,
and that's all I got to say about that. So,
cool. Until next week, peace.
see ya.